van, and welcome to my vlog. Morning. So for my vlog today I'm going to talk about Satnavs and how we find our park-ups. So I'm parked at my office by the sea on a beach called Black Sands, and we absolutely love it here. This is probably a good example of a real van life park-up. Somewhere out the way, it's pretty remote. There's no villages nearby, just a few little holiday houses or farmhouses in the hills behind me, and we're about 10 minutes drive from the nearest sort of little town where we go for shopping. A fairly obvious thing to discuss, and on the surface seems quite simple, but Satnavs and park-ups and how to find them kind of go hand in hand. Something that a lot of people that are new to van life ask: how do you find your park-ups? I see a lot of posts on Facebook from people asking about Satnavs and recommendations for the best type of Satnav, and then how you use a Satnav to find your park-ups and how you differentiate between different types of park-ups. So on the Satnav front, on the surface it would seem logical to buy an actual Satnav, and when we were building our van and we were planning out what we needed, we automatically decided that a Satnav would be the best option. And for me, at that time, I'd not driven a van before, I'd not lived in a van, so I was a little bit conscious about how I would find park-ups and the best way to navigate my route from A to B. So I bought myself a Satnav, which was a trucker's Satnav, which had been recommended by a lot of people online, with the kind of logic that because it's a trucker's Satnav, you can program in the weight of your vehicle, the height of your vehicle and the length of your vehicle, with the presumption that the route would then be suitable for the size of vehicle that you're driving. So we set off from the UK a year and a half ago with our nice new trucker Satnav, and within 3 days I metaphorically binned it. It was absolutely useless, and I know a lot of people have had good results with the trucker Satnavs, but for us it took us out into places that were most certainly not suitable for trucks and lorries. It directed us to places that had height barriers that we then had to reverse down to get away from the height barriers, even though the height of the vehicle was correctly programmed into the truck Satnav. So we got rid of our truck Satnav. It's sat in the top of my glove compartment where it's been unused for a year and a half, and we basically use Google Maps now. But a very good tip for you is, if you buy a decent Satnav or a well-known branded Satnav with updated maps and so on, something like a TomTom or a Garmin or so on that people often swear by, you can pay for a decent sized screen one, you can pay £300, £400, £500. Quite often you have to pay for new maps every year, or for maps of the continental area that you're going to be driving on. So when I had a TomTom in my car, when I came on holiday to Spain, I had to pay extra for up-to-date European maps covering Spain. So it can work out quite costly. So what we discovered almost by accident was, in our Sprinter, the speakers and radio were pretty rubbish. So we decided there must be a way to upgrade those. We got ourselves an 8-inch screen head unit, which is a DVD player, CD player, radio, digital radio, and has 3 built-in Satnavs, and we paid under £200, and effectively you've got exactly the same Satnavs on there that you would have if you bought a branded Satnav. So obviously for a start, if you want to use a Satnav, the head unit is half the price, and secondly it works with Google Maps and so on. And works with Park4Night, which I'm going to cover off shortly. So I'll show you our head unit, but I would highly recommend that if you were going to go the Satnav route, that you buy a new head unit. Very easy to fit. I'll put a link in the comments and description. It's a 5-minute job to install. It's very plug and play. So how do we navigate when we're on the road? Well, as I've mentioned, we now use just Google Maps, which we use in conjunction with Park4Night. So our routine of travelling is perhaps different to some van lifers. A lot of van lifers we meet obviously leave their country of origin and then they head out into the sunset, and maybe are planning to do that for 6 months, a year or a couple of years, and they basically end up generally travelling further and further away. So for example, they might go from the UK through France, through Spain, with the ultimate goal of getting to Portugal. They might take a year or 6 months or longer to do that journey. Whereas with us, we were originally travelling in short cyclical lumps because we were returning back to the UK to work. And if you've watched previous vlogs, you'll know that we previously had worked for 15 years or more in the events industry, and we run a large nightclub in central London. So every time we had an event on, we would drive back to the UK, use that time to see family, my mum, and my daughter and grandson, etc., and friends. And then we would run our event in London, and then we would spend a week or so recovering from running the event, seeing friends and family again, and then we would pack up and head back out, generally back to where we'd come from, which was usually Spain or Portugal. So what that actually meant is, because we were regularly leaving Spain and Portugal and going back to the UK and then returning back 2 weeks later, we were quite often finding our favourite park-ups and then going back to those. So we've been in a position to see how park-ups have changed. Some of our favourite park-ups have subsequently been shut down by the local council, mayor, police or whatever, or had height barriers put in, so they become no longer viable to stay in for a van life person or somebody travelling in a motorhome. So what we tend to do now is we don't really have a plan of what our ultimate end goal is. So for example, on this trip we left the UK shortly before lockdown. We had an idea that we would spend a couple of weeks slowly pootling through France, come to the south of Spain, spend a month or so here, and then leisurely pootle back through France and then go back to England for Christmas. However, during our journey that all changed with lockdown. So the first day we were in France, everything was fine. And then the day after, France announced that as of that evening they were going into lockdown. Likewise, parts of Spain announced different forms of lockdowns, which we've covered off in previous vlogs about our journey through France and Spain during lockdown. So we had to change our plans, and we basically shot very fast through France and into Spain with a view to going back to some of our favourite park-ups where we could stay for longer periods of time. So the way that we found those is, most of you will be familiar with the app Park4Night. I have a love-hate relationship with Park4Night. On the one hand, I absolutely love it, because when you're travelling, and say for example you were in Valencia and you want to drive for 2 hours that day to find your next park-up, you can then go to roughly the area where you wish to be, have a look on Park4Night, and generally find multiple park-ups ranging from an industrial estate to a car park to maybe a beach park-up to maybe remote park-ups in the hill or whatever. And then you can read the reviews of other people that have used those before, and then making an assessment on whether it's the type of park-up that you're looking at for that evening. So the reason I have a love-hate relationship is, on the one hand I love it because it's so easy to use and it's such a great tool to find park-ups, particularly if you're in an area that you don't know. You can then check out the reviews and see if other people have had any problems there, how busy it may or may not be, whether it has Wi-Fi, 4G, if there are any facilities, or whether it's just simply a park-up in a remote area with no facilities. The reason I hate it is because what often happens is the best park-ups, many people use them, they write great reviews, and then before you know it, there's way too many people arriving at those park-ups. They become overused, people leave rubbish, the local authorities or the local residents maybe get upset because there's too many vehicles parked in their area. So then the local authorities maybe clamp down and close the park up or put a height barrier in and so on. So with Park4Night we've discovered what is kind of obvious, but often some of the best park ups on Park4Night have very poor reviews, and this is because often van lifers that use those park ups regularly become frustrated with the amount of people that are using that park up, so they've then left a negative review with a view of perhaps putting people off and then maybe saving the park up. So for example, we're at a beach now, which you can see behind me, which is called Black Sands. It is on Park4Night and it has terrible reviews, but it's actually one of my favourite park ups, and we've stayed here for several months in the past. We're looking at staying here for a couple of weeks at least on this leg of our journey, and we'd most certainly come back many times. But it did get exceptionally busy in the summer, so van lifers that stay here regularly have left bad reviews to try and put the masses off. So when you're using Park4Night, don't necessarily rely on the reviews, because sometimes you can find an amazing park up that maybe somebody didn't like for whatever reason, or maybe they loved it but they left a poor review to put other people off from coming. So it is a bit of a two-pronged sword, double-edged coin, or whatever the phrase might be, but it is a great tool to find park-ups. If you don't use it or you're not familiar with it, you can just go to Google Play, search for Park4Night, download it to your phone, and then you can put in your destination and very easily find many park-ups. There's hundreds if not thousands in every part of every country, so it does make finding park-ups a breeze. And if you're a regular or a subscriber, you'll also be familiar with our series 101 Park-Ups, where we document all our park-ups as we're travelling through France, Spain and Portugal at the moment, and in the past. But for some of those we don't share the location. We've recently started using what 3 words to share park-ups. So for an example, even though the park-up we're at today, Black Sands, is on Park4Night, and as I mentioned it has poor reviews, I wouldn't share this park-up on the 101 park-ups because it is one of my favourites, and it is a kind of special place. It is right by the beach. It's somewhere where you can stay for weeks or even months. There's a guy over in the back corner of the park-up who's actually basically almost living here. He's been here for 7 months. The police don't visit. It's absolutely stunning, and that's the downside of Park4Night, that as soon as this place is on Park4Night, if it has hundreds of positive reviews, then it would be swamped. Also, secondly, this place is shared with the Spanish locals. We've got to know a lot of them. Some of them live in the local towns, and this is also their haven, so they tend to come here to do fishing. At the weekend they come down and they camp here, and they stay for the whole weekend, maybe with their family, and they have barbecues and they cook. It's also somewhere where cooking on the beach, having fires and barbecues is allowed, or certainly if it's not allowed, it's permissible, and there's no problem with doing so. So in lots of park-ups, you're not able to have a fire or maybe cook outside, so that's another lovely thing about here. So it really is a wonderful place, and we found this not through Park4Night, but we found this along with some of our other favourite park-ups from other full-time van lifers who, once you're on the road, or if you're not already on the road and you're planning to get on the road, as soon as you start meeting up with people, you'll find that van lifers will share their favourite park-ups with you. I've shared this park-up with a couple of English van lifers who've arrived here today, but I've asked them to not share it on Park4Night and not share it publicly, again because these sort of special park-ups are few and far between now. So the other way we find park-ups, apart from word of mouth from other very kind van lifers that share some of these wonderful places with us, is to just use Google Maps on satellite view. So for example, if we want to be on the beach in a certain part of Spain, we would first of all maybe check Park4Night and see what's available. And quite often, particularly recently, some of the beaches in Andalusia have changed their laws, and they've put height barriers in on a lot of the popular beaches, which generally tend to be the more tourist orientated beaches, which they've kind of outlawed for campers, motorhomes and vans. So what we do is we zoom in onto Google Maps with satellite mode, and we find remote beaches, or what we think maybe is a remote beach that has access. And we found some wonderful park-ups that have not been on Park4Night, that have been very remote, or perhaps remoter. And then we see what the access looks like, and then we just drive there and see if we can get access to somewhere to park. So on our last leg of our journey, we were looking for somewhere near Peninsula, and we couldn't find anywhere on Park4Night that was still available. So we just simply zoomed in on the coast, found a beach, drove to it, see if we could get into it. We couldn't, so we kept doing that several times, and after about half an hour we found a lovely remote beach. Nobody else there, out in the middle of nowhere, absolutely stunning. So there's always ways of finding great park-ups. You'll find also, particularly in Spain, Portugal and parts of France, that park-ups inland are a lot easier, because people tend to gravitate obviously to the coast, particularly at this time of year where it's technically winter and the weather at the coast is still absolutely gorgeous here in Spain. So you do find a lot of people tend to congregate to the coast areas, so they can be a little bit busier. And even now during localised lockdowns, and while COVID is rife in Europe and the rest of the world, so we're actually finding there's still a lot of English people on the road. And another man's turned up here this morning, who's another English chap that we met a few days ago, and we shared this park up with him, and he's turned up to join us. So we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 English vans here, and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 non-English vans, of which 3 are Spanish, 1 is Finnish, and I'm not sure on the third one. I think it's a French family. So there's about 10 of us here, so it's wonderful to be parked up with other people. We had a fire on the beach last night with Rosie, and we cooked potatoes, so that was absolutely great. So if you're about to travel, or you are travelling, hope you find some great park-ups. And don't forget to not always rely on Park4Night. There are many park-ups that are not on there. Ask other van lifers or people that are on the road for recommendations. Privately usually is best. Feel free to drop me a personal message on Facebook if you'd like to know anything about where we park, or if you want a specific park-up if you're living full-time in your van. I'd be more than happy to share. So thanks for watching, and if you haven't, please do like and subscribe. That does mean a lot to us, and please leave a comment. We answer all comments, although I have got a backlog, so I apologise if I've not answered your recent comments as quickly as I'd like to. I'll try and catch up with those over the next few days. And wherever you are, whether you're travelling or at home in lockdown, stay safe and keep smiling, and I'll see you soon. Cheers!